The energy crisis in Europe is beginning to have a catastrophic effect on the eurozone economy. Germany is set to lose big as record high inflation, risks of a recession, soaring energy and operating costs drive manufacturing giants out of the country. Germany is Europe's largest economy, and companies shifting production out of it also means manufacturing moving out of Europe. Just to give you an idea of how painful the multi-pronged crisis is proving to be for Europe, the world's largest chemical manufacturer has just said it plans to permanently downsize its operations in the European continent. The BASF is now looking to shift base to Asia. To be precise, the manufacturing behemoth is counting on China to help it set base in greener pastures. The world's largest chemical producer, Germany's BASF, has announced that it would need to permanently reduce its costs and operations in Europe. It cited high energy prices, high regulatory standards, and an increasingly sluggish chemicals market for the decision to shift base to China. Here's some astonishing data which tells you why BASF is planning to dramatically cut its operations in Europe. In the first 9 months of 2022 alone, natural gas costs at BASF's European sites were about 2.2 billion euros, higher than a year earlier. BASF also revealed that its operating loss in Germany was 130 million euros in the third quarter ending September. That's worrying news because just a quarter ago, BASF was able to scrape through a profit of more than 100 million euros. 2 weeks ago, the BASF said in a statement that it would reduce costs in Europe by around 10% or about 500 million euros by 2024. The manufacturing giant added that more significant structural cutbacks in European production would be announced in early 2023. Industries are finding it increasingly difficult to continue operations in Europe. While the escalating energy costs, risks of recession, and sky-high inflation have adversely affected companies' ability to continue normal operations, there's also another factor at play here. Manufacturers have grown nauseous of tight regulations across Europe, especially those around the bloc's ambitious climate goals. Europe's industrial competitiveness is now taking a harsh beating, especially among energy-intensive industries that guzzle high amounts of petroleum and natural gas. Decreasing competitiveness and a dire economic outlook for the future seems to have triggered an exodus of manufacturers out of Europe. Here's how Europe was able to maintain its industrial hegemony for so long. The European Union had been taking in large amounts of cheap Russian natural gas that made industrial operations in the continent a walk in the park for companies. But the war in Ukraine has changed that. Now, Asia is the continent getting cheap Russian fuel, and that is why manufacturers like BASF are shifting base to countries like China. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is scheduled to visit China next week as part of a visibly desperate foreign policy turnaround. Accompanying him on the tour will be the BASF chief himself. Here's what the BASF CEO had to say about shifting operations to China. We have a very profitable China business. Half of the world market is there. What kind of a risk does a company run into if it renounces half of the market? So, is Europe's deindustrialization now unstoppable? Do let us know what you think in the comments.